What sets Everest apart from so many of the other manufacturers across industries is that attention to detail and service. A lot of our issues come from wear and tear, which I'm okay with. A little button might wear out, but it's only because it's selling so much ice, the button's getting pressed so many times a day, it breaks. I'll take that problem every day of the week because I'm okay with it selling that much ice. You've got to meet them in the middle. You do your part, they're going to do their part. Chances are you're probably going to make some money selling frozen cubes of water. My name is Steve Slagle, and I'm the owner of Beachside Ice.
How has Everest helped you start and expand your business since originally purchasing a machine?
Absolutely. So yeah, we initially started with 2 machines, called into Everest after doing months and months of research through all the various companies. And Everest was the only company we felt we were going to develop a partnership with, which to me was very important, getting into an industry that I had not been in the past. After our first phone call, I had a lot of questions. Everybody at Everest was great, helped me answer them, got me the information I needed. We pulled the trigger on 2 machines right off the bat. Put those in, and we're very blessed to have great success. Within less than a year, added a 3rd machine, and within a few months of that, added a 4th machine. And now we're looking to potentially grow into machines 5, 6, and hopefully beyond. The one nice thing about Everest that I continually appreciate is the continued service. I like being able to call back to talk to people that I've talked to before. Recognizing their first names, they recognize mine. And that sort of relationship to me and my business is invaluable.
How has Everest helped you out to be successful? Is there anything or anyone that has helped?
You know, I've spent quite a bit of time talking with Marco Osborne, who's our sales coordinator, our bouncing creative ideas off one another, Gilbert in the marketing department as well. A lot of times, and I'll call it throwing spaghetti at the wall. Here's a bunch of ideas, let's throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And those guys have been instrumental in sort of helping hone those paths as to where are the best locations, where can you get creative, something that's a little out of the norm to put an ice and water vending machine. And then we can kind of flip the other side as we get into service. I work almost exclusively with Uriel, who has been absolutely amazing every step of the way. Anytime we've needed help, Uriel has been there 100%. The machine is a machine. It's going to have something at some point that's going to break, whether it's a wear and tear item or just simply something that's going to break just in time. You know, we deal with it in our cars, we deal with our homes, you deal with anything these days. Something breaking isn't important to me, it's how it's fixed. The one thing I will give Everest credit 100% for, anytime we've had an issue where an item needed to be replaced or fixed, Everest has been there. The response has been tremendous. We've had some instances where we needed parts very quickly, and working through with Uriel and some of his team, get a part in a day, maybe 2 days, and get it into the machine, and the machine's back up and running. The malfunction of a machine or a wear and tear item breaking is not surprising to me. The service there to fix that is what's important, and I can honestly say Everest has done it 100% every time.
To hear that customer support has helped you is wonderful and essential. Not every manufacturer does that.
In this day and age, we see prices increasing exponentially. The service too often doesn't follow with that. And we've all seen it. If you've taken an airline lately, your airline price is more expensive now than it's almost ever been in the past, yet you're receiving less and less and less of a service for that. Home prices, fantastic example. You're paying more now for a home than has been almost at any time in the past, and you're getting less for that value. So when you can find a company now that still puts the service at a forefront, those are the companies I traditionally like to deal with, because now I feel like the value for my dollar is being met. Not only am I getting a product, but I'm getting the service there behind it. And I think that we will see those companies that make service as important as the product be the ones to outlast this sort of peaks and valleys of this economy we're facing.
How has your location helped you? What was the process in Everest helping you find a location?
3 out of 4 of our machines are not accessible to the general public. We've gone into condominium and resort complexes that only serve their specific clientele. One of the reasons that attracted us into those locations was we immediately have a captive audience. We know people are going to be there. Where our machines are located in the panhandle of Florida, it sees a tremendous influx of tourism for about 8 months out of the year. So we know the people are coming. We know where they're going to be. Our challenge is how to get them to know the machine exists, what it does, and ultimately how to use it. And once we can bridge those gaps, now we've got a clientele and a customer base that doesn't have to go anywhere. We were never terribly interested in going after some of the big box stores or roadside locations. We knew we wanted that captive audience, and we were able to go after that. Now, our fourth machine is publicly accessible, but it's at an RV park, a campground that services a number of hundreds of units. So that machine kind of does a balancing act. It's got a dedicated clientele, but it's also available to the public if they know where it is. We like that. It provides a number of advantages to us. One, the majority of our machines are in gated complexes. So security to us is important. Having the machine there behind a gated access puts a little bit of our minds at ease. We know the machine's gonna be taken care of where they're at. 3 out of the 4 of them being directly on the Gulf of Mexico doesn't hurt. Ice sails are relatively easy on the beach when it's 98 degrees outside. That's kind of where we went after first. We've continued to expand in that realm just because we've seen the returns come back quicker than anticipated. So we've kind of found our little niche, and we like living in that neighborhood. Goal is to continue to expand in those areas, staying within that sort of niche until we find some more great locations.
What do you do to advertise your machine? What do you make of the term, you have to spend money to make money?
One of the most important things for anybody to realize as they get into this, it's a business. It is not simply a get a machine, put it somewhere, and now you're consistently making money. It's a new business, and you have to treat it as such. And it's no different than starting a car dealership or starting, any sort of new company. It requires that investment. Marketing and advertising is a huge portion of that, because you've got to get people to realize what the machine is. It's still a relatively new product. People may drive by and not realize what that big blue box is. So you as the owner now have to commit yourself to doing that. Get it, where is your machine? What is it? What does it do? How does it work? For us, one of the challenges is getting the word out there to the point we think we're the best value. Traditionally, you go to a big box or a convenience store, you might be paying $3.79 for a 7-pound bag of ice. We continually see the price go up, but the volume of ice go down. The wonderful thing about the Everest machine, it's a 10-pound bag of ice. Now the price point you put where you think you can make the most money at, but you've got to get that out there too. You've got to get people to realize that's a value, an added value to them. So doing that, there's quite a bit of a time and an investment and a commitment in the beginning, but that's like any business. I don't think that's specific just to ice and water vending.
What is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Start advertising right away. We did not at first, and I'll be honest, I'll be guilty of it. I didn't see the value in it. In the first 8 to 10 months, I relied more on sort of word of mouth, the machine's location, people finding it sort of organically. As we got into the advertising, I quickly realized the error in my way. And advertising doesn't have to be expensive. I think our advertising budget in the first year was about $350 for the entire year, which is nothing. It's very minimal. But the return on that advertising dollar came back 3 to 4 times. I wish I'd have known then what I know now. Spend the money on the marketing and the advertising. And there's a number of ways to do it. There's direct mail, there's digital, all the social media platforms are available to those. So you've really got to get creative a little bit and think about getting that word out there. And I always tell folks, if you're not good at those sorts of things, that's fine. Find somebody who is. Talk to your friend network, your family network. Ask other business owners. How do you get the word out there? How do you market? How do you advertise? Where's your biggest return? People will usually tell you. I mean, there's no secrets to the games we're in, the businesses we do, but find those out. Realize what your weaknesses are and find somebody with that strength. Like I said, I wish we'd have been advertising before we ever put in our first 2. We'd have been ahead of the game a lot quicker.
What are some other pitfalls or advice that new customers should be aware of?
I think you have to be realistic. I think in any new venture, the idea of simply buying the product or buying the machine, installing it, and instantly turning revenue is unrealistic. Products like that either don't exist or are so few and far between, they're very unrealistic. You have to go into it knowing it's a business, knowing it's going to start to take time. Time invested is a direct equation into revenues and success. The more time and energy you're willing to put in it, the greater chances of success you will see. Conversely, if you're not willing to put in the time or the energy, you may not see the returns. Very easy then to play the blame game. Oh, it's the manufacturer's fault, or it's this person's fault. When ultimately, no, you as the business owner have to drive that. And if you're willing to and you have the time and the energy, go for it. There's plenty of support out there. If you're not, I think you have to have the self-realization that maybe entrepreneurship isn't the best way. And I've talked to a number of people over the years that say they could never be an entrepreneur. They don't have either the self-discipline or the energy to put the time into it and the work into it. They're much more happier kind of being the cog in the wheel, which there's nothing wrong with. You can make a great career, a great life, and be very happy doing that. But for some folks, we just don't fit in those molds. For the entrepreneurs and the folks that want to create these sort of additional revenue streams and ancillary income, it's out there. You just have to work to get it.
How has being an Everest owner helped you reach your financial goals?
We've been fortunate again. Our Everest machines they're all profitable. Certainly very excited about and very glad to see. It did take some time and some energy, and it's continued on. We still spend a fair amount of time every week looking into the machines, taking care of them. I think now we're down to about 10 minutes per machine, maybe once a week. So our time investment is starting to come down a little bit as we've streamlined our processes. The nice thing about that is even if I'm out of town or I'm working or I'm sleeping, the machine is still generating money. People are still buying ice, they're still buying water. So I may not be having to have hands on my machine, but it's still producing income and revenue. We take back and we put into our family or we put into some other business ventures. Predominantly, we put it back into expanding our ice and water businesses.
How do you handle the ebb and flow of the year?
So again, I think you have to be realistic. Where we're currently at in Florida, we see about 4 months of winter. And I say winter by Florida standards. It's in the 50s. So for us, we know during that time, we're not going to sell a tremendous amount of ice. We know that from not only our historical data with the ice machines themselves, but from just living in the area. So I think you need to be realistic and budget yourself accordingly. You need to know in maybe these months, you're not going to sell a tremendous amount of ice, but is there a chance to market water? So where we're at, we see a flip-flop from ice sales to water sales. We see a lot of tourists from the upper Midwest, from Canada, that come to our area that do a lot of water purchases. And so we'll kind of switch gears and look at more selling water during those off months when we're not going to sell as much ice. But a lot of that, again, becomes realistic. I think you've got to be able to tell yourself December 23rd, if it's in the 30s outside, it's cold, you're probably not going to sell very many bags of ice. It's just a realization. So I think being honest with yourself, or hopefully you've got a friend or a partner that'll be honest with you, it makes it easier to budget too. For me specifically, we kind of balance our year on 8 months. If we need to hit a number, we know we need to do it in 8 months. Anything else in the remaining 4, is extra, is great. So that's kind of the way we look at it. I think no matter where you're at in the country, there's some seasonality. Even if you were to get into South Texas or South Florida, it may not be freezing, but you have some sort of a winter. So I think going into that when you're with your business plan and being honest as to what your sales could potentially be, just sets you up more for success versus it does for failure.
And how do you prepare for times when business is low?
Right, well, it's very easy to sit down with a calculator and say, okay, well, if I sell 100 bags of ice a day at this price point times 365 days, this is what I'm going to make. Well, sure, that's going to give you a top line number, but it's not realistic. You're not subtracting any kind of overhead, any sort of expenses. You're not subtracting rainy days, cold days, stormy days. It doesn't, whatever the weather may be. So I think you've got to realize those days are there. So out of your 365 days, maybe you net that down to 300 days of actual ice sales. And being able to do that and be honest with yourself will help, because then you're just not disappointing yourself when you're not meeting your sales goals.
How do you scale and not burn yourself out or overextending yourself?
I think with growth, you have to be careful. Every business, gets started wants to grow. Obviously, the more you grow, the potential of more earnings and more revenue there is. But I think steady, calculated growth is where it's at. So Honestly, we could probably put another 20 machines into the field and have places for them and grow, but it's not a pace we're ready to succeed at. We're much better poised now to grow at 2, maybe 3 machines a year because we can succeed in those. We found that's a good spot for us with our time allocations and our availability that works. Now, if we went to 10 machines, we would probably not be as successful and we wouldn't be able to provide the service that we currently do. One of the reasons we are successful is our relationship with our landowners. Where our machines are, the landowners, the property managers, we have great relationships with them. And a lot of that is because we can spend a little bit of time with them in addressing their concerns, what's great about the machines, what's not, what are they hearing from their customers. And we've got the ability to focus on that. Whereas if we had 30 of them right now, it would be difficult. So calculated growth is our goal. Like I said, maybe 2 to 3 machines per year. And there's really no end. There's really no light at the end of the tunnel. We're hoping to continually add a few every year for the foreseeable future.
Would you buy another Everest machine?
Wholeheartedly. Without a doubt. Like I said, we've been very fortunate and very proud to work with Everest and partner with Everest. I can't really think of anything that would deter me away. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with being realistic. I don't care what kind of car you buy and how much money you spend on that car will have an issue at some point in time. Everest machines are no different. What sets Everest apart from so many of the other manufacturers across industries is that attention to detail and service. So when something does break, Everest is there to help. Everest is there to guide you through it. Like I said, we're very fortunate to work with a dedicated member of the service team in Uriel in that, a lot of our issues come from wear and tear, which I'm okay with. A little button might wear out, but it's only because it's selling so much ice, the button's getting pressed so many times a day, it breaks. I'll take that problem every day of the week because I'm okay with it selling that much ice. But again, it's the back end of that. What's the service, the support like? What's the speed at which they operate? And that's one of the things that continually keeps me with Everest and helps as other folks want to get into the industry. It's easy for me to recommend Everest and say, look, this is my experience with them. And it's not just exclusive to me. There's lots of owners throughout the country that receive this great customer service, this great experience. It's not just me, it's across the board. You've got to meet them in the middle. You do your part, they're gonna do their part, and chances are you're probably gonna make some money selling frozen cubes of water.